Without a doubt, No Man's Sky is an absolutely fantastic looking game. Over the last couple of years it's come along in leaps and bounds, and with the next update it now looks like a dramatically different game. The question is it the ultimate space game? So there are a lot of familiar things with No Man's Sky Next, from making your way across the galaxy, discovering Atlas stations, and just the usual grind, finding materials, and the constant treadmill of upgrading or replacing your resources. Now for me, with No Man's Sky, this always become a bit of a chore very quickly. With No Man's Sky Next, it seems to be a very different story. It's not quite the grind or quite the treadmill that it once was. Of course, you do still need to collect the various materials for various different functions, including replicating the different types of materials, one thing from another, upgrading ferrous dust, for example, to pure ferrous dust. But it turns out this is now a far more interesting process than it once was. In fact, it's helped a lot by the fact that the game, with all the other updates, has really opened up. There really is a world of things to do now. Now, please do excuse the graphical colours here. They're not particularly optimal, and that's because I was recording it on HDR on my PlayStation. But in a few minutes, this will rectify itself as I actually remembered to disable that. Now, I'm not going to go through a full-on review here or anything like that. By this point, you'll no doubt have seen a lot of No Man's Sky Next videos, so I'm a little bit late here with this one, but I've had quite a bit of things going on, so only just got around to putting this video together, but I have been playing it for quite a few hours now. So what I really did like is how you start out in the middle of nowhere. Initially, you started off on the original version, you started off right near your damaged ship, but nowadays you start off in the middle of nowhere, like I say, and you have to actually track down and locate the ship, and when you find it, it's damaged and you need to get it up and running again. Personally, I felt this gave a lot more character to the game. It lets you feel as though you really are lost out there in space, rather than just waking up near your ship with not really knowing what's going on as a player or as a character. And yes, the third-person camera really does help here a whole lot. I played more or less exclusively with the third-person view. Can't play the game in first-person anymore. It's much better like this. So there are a whole bunch of different modes, of course. There's creative, hardcore, survival, and all the rest of it. But I've been playing on normal mode. I'll get round to having videos on the other modes a little later on. Creative mode is especially something I really do want to look at. Now, one thing I really did enjoy right from the outset is the way the game's paced. There is, of course, a tutorial that comes in multiple stages, and it's essentially a campaign that will last for many hours, but it will drive you through the absolute basics of the game right to the more advanced features. And there really are some stunning looking locations as you go around. Each planet does have its own identity, really. They all feel very alien, some more so than others. Some of the more Earth-like ones, I guess, feel a little closer to home in some respects, but some of them are very alien, and they feel just like some sort of scene out of a 60s or 70s sci-fi movie, and I guess that really is the feel that Hello Games are going for. Now on the screen you can see some building, and this is pretty much straight out of Ark, Survival Evolved, or anything else of similar ilk, and this is the basic earlier stages of building, and later on you do build with full modules rather than just walls. What this really did highlight to me is just the sheer number of layers to the game. We got full-on building, which is actually a very in-depth system. There's frigate owning and fleet management. You can own huge fleets and send them off on expeditions. There's also a full-on mission system, not to mention the ability to simply kick back and explore if that's your thing. In fact, in all the hours I've been playing the update, it really does feel as though I've barely scratched the surface. And talking of surfaces, the planetary surfaces are very nice indeed. Now, used to be able to find grassy type planets like this, but they used to be quite difficult to come across. Nowadays, I haven't found a single boring planet, and there's many of these grassy worlds out there. But it's not just the planets that are interesting. Travel around long enough and you will come across many different interesting sites. Now that said, I haven't found a sandworm yet. I don't know if they're in the game, but probably not. Then again, the freighters and other things perhaps make up for it. Now one thing for people like me who love to get a little bit creative, you will like the camera mode or the photo mode. Not unusual or unique nowadays amongst console games, as many games have this sort of thing, but yes, it's pretty powerful to say the least. Now, if this video seems a little bit all over the place in the sense of what I'm talking about, that really is down to the way the game plays. I mean, one minute you can be peacefully exploring a planetary surface, the next minute you can find yourself on the run for your life from sentinels, or head up into space, you can find yourself under attack by pirates, or alternatively answer a radio call, and you can then find yourself coming to the aid of a frigate who will then eventually, maybe, hand over their frigate to your ownership. So yes, it's a dynamic game where things play out and change from moment to moment. Now, very familiar is Polo and Nada. They're here from the original version of the game, or the original release, and they still want the little bits of information and data that they always wanted, and Polo is particularly useful here as it will give you blueprints as rewards. Now, at any time you can come across a frigate, you can actually dock with these, and if you own one, then you can build a fleet command centre, and from here you can essentially monitor your expeditions. And this is something I really did like. It's nice to send your ships out on their activities and their tasks. Some of them can be combat related, some of them more exploration related. And these all have timers to complete, but eventually they will complete and you can then come back and collect your rewards. The galaxy map has also been reworked. In fact, I believe this was reworked in a previous update rather than next, but it's now far more intuitive and much more useful. Of particular interest for me was the ability to cycle through different mission types. So you can go on current mission, or you can just have free explore, or you can head towards an Atlas station if you've got one marked on your map. But one of the things I still have a bit of an issue with is the way you have to keep refueling your ship. Now, hyperjumps still are the same old thing, a massive loading screen. That takes a little bit too long, especially on console. And for each hyperdrop you will need a warp cell, and you're going to need to scrounge around for components to actually build these. It's fair enough, the components are actually very easy to come across, but you couldn't keep jumping and jump after jump if you were so inclined, at least not without building up a massive stock of warp cells. But it's not so much a hindrance as it is an inconvenience, so if you just plan along, just make sure you keep a bit of a stock of them, and generally speaking you won't have too much of a problem. Now here's the thing, one of the biggest updates with No Man's Sky Next of course was multiplayer, and it's something I haven't tried out yet. I mean, I've got caught up in the single player. It's a wonderful adventure, just going from location to location, making all sorts of weird and strange discoveries, and the game ultimately feels very, very alive. In terms of being a great space game, if you're not too worried about hardcore science fiction and you don't need your science to be 100% accurate, in fact it's not going to be any accuracy at all within this game, but if you're simply here for an adventure, if you simply want to explore a bold and bright world with all manner of different activities, then No Man's Sky is a wonderful game. It just keeps leading you along. There's always something new, there's always something different. And around every corner it really does feel as though there's wonderful adventures to be had. And honestly, this is something that cannot be said for all that many games out there. The biggest downside is, like I said earlier, there is that constant grind where you've got to keep collecting materials. And well, while this is not so much of a factor with creative mode, it is a factor in all other modes. And you're going to need to keep replenishing your suit, you're going to keep needing to restock your weapons, your ammunition, and in combat you're going to need to keep restocking your shield, and it all gets a little bit much to manage at times. In fact, combat is as clunky as ever, and I didn't get involved in too much of it precisely because of that, but the few sessions I did have, I unfortunately didn't manage to capture. Another nice touch, of course, is the ability to get involved in a little bit of piracy there. Just shoot open the cargo hatches and take what you want. And as I mentioned earlier, here are the mission boards. Now, the thing is, I haven't covered everything in the game. This video is not intended to be an in-depth video by any means. It's really letting you know my thoughts and feelings on how things stand with my first few hours in the game. And I've got to say, I'm very impressed. What I'm going to do is make a whole bunch more videos on this and go into each element in more specifics, and I'll bring those videos out over the next few days and the next few weeks. I honestly feel that's the only way to do this game justice. There's just so much to it. Really, Hello Games have done a wonderful job. The game started out in not a very good place 2 years ago, but here we are in 2018 and it really is a seriously good game right about now. So plenty more to come on this very soon. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.